Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing? A lot of this is probably the first day of market for you guys. Welcome to Universal Furniture Showroom, our new redesigned learning center. I hope you guys, if you've been here before, you may notice it looks a little bit different than the last time you were here. But before I hand it over to Traci, I kind of wanted to give you kind of a brief overview of new things that we have in the showroom this market. So we have two new collections this market. We have Montclair, which is located on floor 2, and we have an addition to our Coastal Living Home collection on floor 3, and it's called Oasis. I also wanted to mention that all of the lighting in the Learning Center is sponsored by Regina Andrew. They are located in the IHFC on the first floor. If you would like to go check out their showroom, I got a little sneak peek last night, and it was absolutely beautiful. But before I heard it, I'm going to hand it over to Traci now, and she's going to talk about all of our favorite subject of finance. Thank you guys again.
It's all our favorite topic. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Universal, for having me today. I know, first day of market. Y'all, I just have to start out by saying I'm here. My luggage is in Miami. Yeah, I got here I guess at midnight, and my sister Trisha works with me on the coaching side, and we were at Target this morning. She picked up my outfit. So, we do what we have to do, but you know how it is in design. You just never, and I was laying there last night awake. We couldn't get into the Airbnb, which was another thing. So we were in a hotel that you kind of walk up to the door from the parking lot. So I shared a bed with one of my colleagues, a little double bed, and I was laying there thinking, I was like, I've done this before. So this was probably about 6 or 7 years ago. In Dallas, we had a house fire, and the next morning, I had a shoot with Traditional Home. So I was at Target at 8 a.m. getting an outfit so I could go in makeup and hair stuff. So I'm like, I got this. It's no problem. So fingers crossed I will get all my things back tomorrow afternoon. So I just got to go back to Target, y'all. We do what we got to do. But so welcome, you guys. I'm so happy you are here. As Kayla mentioned, I'm Traci Connell. I have an interior design firm in Dallas, Texas for, a little over 20 years. I have a team of 8. I have 4 interior designers, a business manager, procurement specialist, an office manager, which I'm super excited about that new hire, all the things. And so I guess about 5 years ago, you know how we get, and you've been doing things a long time, and something just nudges at you, and you're like, what is my zone of genius? Well, I was a teacher, and I realized that for years, I was enthralled with the business side of interior design. And you might ask why, that's just, like I said, an educator. And so personal things happened in my life where it was time for me to make money. Some of you have heard my story before. I see familiar faces, so thanks for being here. But I think I just dove in. I was like, all right, now I'm a single mom of 3 kids, and I got to make money. I can't be doing this, or else I'm going to have to go back and be a teacher of second graders, and that was not an option. So I was like, all right, I'm going to grow this firm. But there was a lot that I did that I'm talking to you about today to help me do that. But then I liked it so much. I'm like, okay, you know how you do. You get your business going, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to do another, revenue-generating activity in my firm or another, diversification, and I went into coaching. And so I'm a mentor for interior designers, like I said, on the business side, and I do specialize in profitable processes. So I feel like on the process side, I have a lot to say to American Airlines at this point, so I will just keep that alone. But I do have a special guest here today. His name is Zach. He is from Studio Designer. You will hear me talk about, hands up if you have heard of Studio Designer before. Okay, what a treat. If you have not, it's a project management accounting software that I use in my firm, and I've used it for about 12 years. It is a powerhouse which allows us to really streamline all functions of the firm and all the money side as well. Super fun. All right, so We're going to jump right in, you guys. All right. So a lot of us in the room, we didn't grow up with like tons of wealth, right? We've got to fight for what we're doing, and interior design field, you know, a lot of people say, well, when you graduate college and if you say, oh, I'm going to major in design in college, your parents may say, well, that's probably not a good idea. Well, I'm here to tell you, you put your head down, it's a really good idea. So we're going to talk about a couple of things of why you should not be glossing over your financials. And I say that because the coaching platform is called The Gloss. It's the ultimate glossary of business resources for interior designers. There's some information in your seat. Join us. It's free. We have some other programs. But what I'm here to talk to you about today, a couple of things. The first thing is you all can make money doing this. If most of you are independent designers, no matter what you specialize in, whether you're short-term rentals or you're commercial, you're hospitality, you just run a firm like mine, new construction, renovation, furnishings, y'all, there is power here, and it's power in this room. So my goal is to help normalize wealth among interior designers. And it starts right here, all right? A lot of us are shopping out of our own wallets. Hands up if you sometimes feel that you are. Oh, I can't charge that much. I can't charge that, yeah, that many hours, right? This rug is, how can I even price this at $35,000? It's because we would never pay that. Those are some of the things we've got to get out of our head, because what happens is, oftentimes, and I'm not saying this is everybody, we've got low revenue going on, we have issues with our cash flow, and we have issues with profitability. And if you're not even like looking at your numbers, you may not know this yet. You may not know this yet. So, hands up. Have you ever felt weird or guilty about charging for your time or marking up product? Anytime have you had a hesitation? We all have. I think we all have, right? And I want to shift that mindset a little bit today. And as I was writing this, I was like, God, you sound so mean. I'm like, I feel like the way I talk to myself and give myself a pep talk. So we're not going to be mean, but I guess I am a straight shooter. So let's get down to this. So mindset shifts. Yeah, millions are in the margins. So I always talk about trading time for money. If you've been in this long enough, you know design fee alone really can't help you grow a sustainable business, one that you're going to have over the years. It is, for me, when I stopped doing consultations all day long, I'd be in my car, and then I'd eat lunch, and I'd go to another one, it was just, I wasn't selling product. The minute I started selling product is when everything started to change. The growth, the scaling, the hiring. That's when it all multiplied, is when I started selling product. And so if you think about like a high-end restaurant, so how are they making money, right? They make margin off the wine. They make margin off the tips. They make margin off the food. But time alone, if that's the way you want to run your business, that's great, especially if you have a lot of people doing all the same things at once. But if not, and you're a solopreneur, or you have one or two employees, then we got to start charging. We got to start charging. And one of the things is too, if the margin isn't good, there might be a reason not to do the service. So I see this a lot. We take things that might not be making us money. So I have chosen in my firm, on renovation projects, I sometimes stay out of some of the ordering of the build product, because I don't want to be, number one, responsible for if something happens. If I order all the tile and it comes in broken, or I don't want to deal with it. How am I going to get the tile from the distribution center to the job site, and somebody's got to be there to receive it and make sure it's good? I have just chosen that it takes more time for us. And how do I know that? I'm looking at the margin. So Studio Designer is one of the tools that I use, that I can go in and look at the sales categories, and I can see where my margins are. So we like to be at about 40% in product. And when I say margins, you guys, a lot of you are doing markup. We run everything off of a margin. But I can see, like, oh my gosh, I'm getting more money when I sell window treatments, because nobody can really shop that, or upholstered goods. But you really need to be looking to see where you're making the most money and then evaluating if you really should do it. So sometimes, like I said, when we're kind of hiding and we don't look at it, you're missing out. You're missing out on an opportunity. Because like I said, then you can push more of it. All right, fee transparency. Oh gosh, this is a good one. And like I said, I'm not going to say anything to you that you probably haven't heard before, but you don't have to pass on your discounts to your clients, and you don't even have to use that in your sales pitch. I just don't think it's necessary. I feel like they are hiring you. Your design fee is for your design. That is how I explain it. It's for the design. On the product side, and that's why Universal is such a great resource too, that you work to get good pricing. You work to get stocking dealer. You have, bought into a lot of these lines. Well, here's the deal. When you become a stocking dealer, then you're dealing with all the issues as well. So why would we be passing along our discounts? I don't know. I know it sounds good. Oh my gosh, work with me because I'm going to, it's almost like we feel like we have to. But when I talk about these margins, you guys, what happens when you purchased a chair and the chair ships from the manufacturer and it lands at the client's home? Well, after it's even at the receiver, it lands in the client's home, it's damaged, right? Then what do? The shipper's saying, nope, it received in Dallas, it was fine. Delivery company said it was fine when it left here. The freight companies, it's all good. Guess who ends up eating and repaying for that damage? It's you guys. So I say, on the fees, on those markups, to me, it's insurance. It's literally insurance that you're going to need. Not to say there's a ton of mistakes, but let's be real, y'all. Like, there's things that happen, especially if you're buying a lot of product. So kind of think about that. You're going to need that extra bit, right? And a lot of you, this is not even a pricing talk, but a lot of you, there's different ways to charge. And it's great if you want to say, cost plus 25, cost plus 30. But if you are a designer that is selling like $25,000 rugs on the low end, yes, you can make a good living off a 25% markup. If you're selling $2,000 rugs, you got to sell a lot of rugs to get there. So that is why, again, really why you're here, take advantage of getting to know some of these manufacturers, these vendors. Ask about better pricing. Ask about their freight program. Don't be shy, okay? Just gather as much information as you can. You're going to need that money, unfortunately, to cover some of this. So, all right, what's the next thing we can do to solve our profitability challenges? All right. It's funny because I put know your numbers. We're not accountants. We're creatives, all right? Like, know your numbers, learn your numbers. How about just, listen to somebody talk about your numbers? I think that one's probably a little better. We can just listen. But there are 3 terms that we hear a lot about: revenue, cash flow, and profit. We don't need to pretend to know all of these things, right? But revenue is one that we need. We just need to know enough to be dangerous in this field, right? Because if we're not, could we say we're glossing over our financials, and are we becoming a little financially irresponsible? Maybe. Revenue. How much do we care about revenue? We do. But what's the number we need to be concerned with? It's the profit. You guys heard the revenue is the vanity number. It's that means nothing if you're making $3 million in your firm and your expenses are, 2.5. It just, that word, and that's just, we're always achieving. That's how I measured my success for so many years. I was like, oh, I want to beat this marker. I want to beat this marker, until I realized it's not that. It's the net profit, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So your revenue, obviously, is all the money that comes in. Product, time, anything that has to do, if you're getting like, I don't know, referral fees from people, that's all your revenue. Again, whether you're using QuickBooks, Studio, one of those accounting programs, it's super easy to track this. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but let me tell you how I've done it. Early in the game, I reached out to a fractional CFO, and I meet with her still after like 15 years to go through all of these numbers, all the reports. Do I love that day? I do now. I love that day. Did I back then? No. No one wants to take the time to do this. And so, again, it's hard to track what you don't know, right? What are your goals? To me, when you start giving away some of these things, I always look back at like when I was a single mom and I'm like, I could be spending time with my kiddos, right? Instead of spending extra time and giving it away. So sometimes you've got to figure out your why to make this work. Your cash flow. Oh, your cash flow is fun. So what I see in cash flow is that's the money, actually. Oh, that is the money that is in your account. It's not necessarily what you've actually learned. So I'm going to break these down a little bit more. And your profit, obviously, is what is left over after you paid all your bills, after you have your salary taken out, etc. So revenue over here, all right, we're concerned about the profit. The cash flow, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about that because, like I said, I work with tons of designers, and I like for them to open their books, and so I can take a look at them. I'm going to encourage you, please don't be spending like lots of personal things out of your accounts. I think the most important accounts that you need to have set up like in your business would be like a product account, so maybe a furnishings account is what we call it, an operating account. And a lot of designers they really like the sales tax account. So when the check comes in from the client or when the fees are wired, in Studio it's easy because you can just apply money in those separate accounts. You just divide that up. But I'm just going to encourage you, let's just keep all that. Just keep it all separate. It will make a big difference. And then also maybe not moving that profit over until the end of the job. That's how I do it. For a long time, I didn't move any money or profit over until after it was installed. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to get this installed by the end of December. So now when product comes in, we're recognizing revenue as it hits the delivery warehouse, because I'm always like, well, what if there's a mistake, right? You got to account for that. In these reports, like I said, in Studio Designer, is interesting because you can run profitability reports per project. Y'all, it is enlightening to see your time, how much time it took. We're going to talk about that in a minute. What your margins were. Did you go over? Were you under? But looking at the data, you guys, is going to be your guide. And these three numbers, they're going to guide you to success, right? So let's talk about some growth metrics. So these three, I'd love for you just like to learn a little bit about that. All right, we're going to talk about time. Flat fees, hourly, the whole thing. We're going to talk about time. Something we don't like to talk about. All right. Who here is runs a flat fee model in their business? Okay, good. And mostly hourly? Hands up? Okay. So maybe a little more flat fee in here, which is kind of cool. So even if you were a flat fee company, please track your hours. And again, we were just talking at lunch. There's so many different ways you can do this. In Studio Designer, you can it's got a time billing function. And so my team goes in and they fill that out, billable, non-billable. Well, I went down the rabbit hole, oh my God, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, and I was like, they're not in here, so I can talk about them. I was like, I wonder how much they're billing, like billable hours, a week. So Anybody know what like a typical, like you want even you or your team to be billing percentage-wise every week? Anybody know? Out of like the 40 hours, like percentage, 80% is healthy, 70, 80%. So I took a deep dive and I was like, oh my gosh, like all the unbillable things that they're doing, even when they come with me on jobs and I have 2 of them, I can't bill for all that time. But just looking at it, I was like, whoa. So everybody's tracking their time, and then I took it up a step further. So I'm big on ownership too. I feel like everybody's got to have a little skin in the game. So every Monday morning, we are tracking the time in our project, and so we have markers. So let's just say our flat fee was, I don't know, let's just say 100 hours on a project, okay? Their target, let's say 100 hours, their target is 85, not to go over 85. Why? Because if you're a flat fee firm, your goal is to be super efficient because you're being paid for what you know and not what you do. So you've got that 15% left over now, which pockets back to the firm. But nobody is going to know that unless we're tracking it and we're talking about it. Through the whole project, they're seeing these numbers on this graph go up and down. And it's really been a game changer for everyone, especially like the lead designers, because they're kind of in charge of that, right? And then you start talking about bonuses and incentives, and then it really gets them moving. But unless you don't put the data in, you can't track it. That often helps with setting design fees, you guys. I mean, again, are you in line? Are you too low? Are you too high? It's the data in the system that's going to help you make decisions. So real crucial, right? Difference between solo and scaling. This is funny. Yeah, the non-billable stuff. So I got an email yesterday, this one client, and the reason why I went down that road, we have a very, you guys know, like the micromanager client that, and she sent an email yesterday, all the rooms are wallpapered and all that good stuff, and she said, well, there's one extra roll of paper left. Can you return it? And I am like, the amount of time that my firm's gonna have to take to return that wallpaper, and I was like, oh, thank God, because she pulled in her installer who measured the paper, right, and gave us the quantity. So I'm like, it just makes 0 sense. So those are some of those time leaks we'll talk about. But golly, sometimes, it's educating the client for sure. All right, product margin. We talked about that a little bit. Let's dig in here. Your profit lies in the products that you sell. How many of you sell a lot of product in your company? Oh, we got to get that higher. Okay, all right. Because I know there are a lot of designers that do, mostly construction, renovation. But if you are a firm that's doing services for construction, new construction, renovation, et cetera, and then you're selling, I like to go into projects where I can sell it's in one contract. Like get the build on the job and then sell the furnishings package at the very beginning that I know I have both of them. But that product margin, let's go back to like the rug example. So in a healthy product margin, I told you around 40%, I think, is healthy on margin. That includes your freight. So I want you to really go back and look at your numbers. That's not your design fees, but just your product. Think about how you're marking that up, all right? So in my firm, I do it a little bit differently, but case goods, like furnishings, your upholstered, all your case goods, it's one different level. And here is the thing. We don't change it, right? We don't change it. It's not like, how much I mark this up today? Because we go into studio and it's already in there. All right, this profit margin is, and you've got to do it in percentage there. So maybe that profit margin is 59%. Everything else in the firm, art, window treatments, pillows, lamps, all the things, drapery, that's all more. You're up in the 80s. How can I do that? It's by buying deep on somebody's product, being loyal not to 50 manufacturers, but maybe pick 5. Pick 5 to start out with. Universal would be an amazing one because they have case goods, they have, upholstery. They have a lot of different things for you to choose from that you can meet those minimums. But here, that's when you see all that magic happening, but you've got to have your systems in place. I better not get into systems. We might be here for a little bit more. But guys, it's the consistency. By having that profit margin already decided, you not talking yourself out of it because of the feedback that you might get from that client that, and it happens. Sometimes it's not going to happen, but a lot of times it's going to happen. Jackie, you have a question?
I do. So when it comes to the net profit margins of the 40%, you're not at a stocking level, some of us may not be it.
Mm-hmm.
One of the challenges we run into is we're like a mid-tier size firm.
Yep.
We don't have millions of dollars. And we get the pushback of like, the same chair that you just backed, I just saw it on Kathy could go home and it's cheaper.
Yeah, the way out of that, unfortunately, is not to spec the same thing that you're going to find. I know. And that's the hardest thing to do. And I can say that all day long, but they're going to Google Lens you.
So much of what we, and I hate to say it, sorry, people, but it was a universal chair that I spec'd that Kathy could go home was selling for
Yeah.
20% less.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have to say to you, and then we get like a bad rap because the clients now think we're trying to scam them.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm not, but I have to cover shipping, receiving, delivery, all that.
And that's the thing. You're going to give them the same song and dance. Like, the song and dance has not changed since I've been doing this long time, right? I'm sorry, but we don't have the buying power that they do. You get the personalized attention from our firm. And even in that price, you've got to figure out, like, when you're doing your fees, so a lot of firms will do, you've got a design fee, whether that's an hourly retainer or that's a flat fee for your services, right? You have your product fee, and then sometimes they will charge, like, a procurement fee on top of that, or project management fee, to order, receive, and deal with all of that. So if your discount is not quite as low, throw in some project management hours there. If you can't mark it up enough, just throw in some project management hours. But I always go back to the thing, and I'm like, look, if Kathy Quo, I don't know how it works. Like, does it end up at their home, and if it's damaged, then what happens? Like, I don't know. Right? Then you're dealing with it. So you go back into that value of service conversation, which is the hardest thing for us to communicate. It is. And if they don't see the value, and they, a lot of them won't. A lot of them won't. A lot of them don't even value furniture. So it is a push-pull, but it's some of this language. I know I think it was a live or something, or I don't know whether it was a seminar, and it was like I had Traci talks. Traci tracks or something. It was like everything like a client could ask, and then I had my pitched response. We'll have to put that up join the gloss on, I know we're on Facebook, y'all, or follow us on Instagram, and then we'll maybe repost that next week, our Traci tracks, because it is, as long as you have that pitched answer, and they're not going to be happy no matter what with it. They don't value the service. I know. It's not good. It's not good. All right, let's see. Yes. We know the net profit margin, that's what you're measuring at the end of the year. That's really the only thing that counts. Is there money left over for you to take a distribution? Is there money left over for you to spend it on more marketing? That number, if there's a number there that's left over that you might say, okay, I'm going to get into short-term rentals because I know I'm going to need some capital to do that. I want to do Kips Bay. That happened to us last year where it was kind of like we were in between some big projects, and I was like, all right, we've got 3 months. Kips Bay is here, and it was a decision that I was like, all right, I'm using this as a marketing expense, but it was because I had a little left over, right? I was like, okay, let's do this. But you either take that yourself or invest it back into your business. All right, hands up again. If I asked you your net profit margin right now, could you tell me within 15% of what your net profit margin is? I see some yes. But Here's the guy, here it is. Yeah, like, no shame in the game, because most people don't know this. Most people are like, yeah, why is it that big of a concern? It is your scoreboard of how your firm's doing. So again, if you are like, this stuff blows my hair back, just learn enough to, like I said, to be dangerous. But then maybe it's your accountant, maybe it's your bookkeeper, right? We're gonna have Zach up in a little bit to talk about some of the reports. If you're interested or using Studio, what a valuable tool to tell you this stuff. And when I was in my, oh my God, like I'm a single mom, I've got to provide for these kids, and yeah, the oh shit time, right? I was like, because I was aware of what I was doing, allowed me to sleep at night. And that is that yucky feeling that we want to get rid of. So instead of hiding, we need to start dipping our toe into it a little bit, right? Just a little bit. All right, so what happens, you guys? We can know all this information and we don't use it. And here's the thing, like you could have all this set up and you could follow Traci's systems and the whole thing, but then what happens? There's usually two people that come in and blow it all up, right? When you think about time, what are the ways that your clients can eat up your time? Who knows this? Like, where are those leaks? What can they do that it's actually like, oh God, like I thought I had it all together, but she wants me to return a roll of wallpaper, right? What are some of those things? Anybody? Yep, scope creep. And that is, can you do that one little thing? It's just super tiny. It's that little tiny thing like that powder bath. You can just do it. New addendum, new design fee, right? Every time. What else? What else do they do that they're just so sneaky? Yep. Oh my God, yeah, I have a list of them and that's it. Right? They're so indecisive. And then you're going back and forth and back and forth. You know what happens though when you send your bill and they're like, oh my God, like this is crazy. This happened to me last week. And so, and because, y'all, this was really interesting. They forget that they sent you 1 million emails and they're calling and they're like, I do a no texting, but my designers slip into texting. And I'm like, you know what, that's your right. If they're gonna contact you at night, I'm like, not me. So over and over and over again. So we sent the time billing invoice. This is for a renovation. And we oftentimes, if it's like a small renovation, we'll do hourly instead of a flat fee. So in the description that we do it in Studio, it was basically, it's one line item. It's sourcing, expediting, drawing, render, whatever it is. It's one explanation. But they wanted more, well, this and that, and this was your mistake. We made a mistake on the rug sizing, and it had to do with the software we were using. And so, yeah, I'm going to take that off, right? But I went into Studio, and we pulled all the billable activities the team had done that week. I screenshot it, and I sent it. No more questions. But it was because they had put it in there. And she did say, I know we're a little indecisive. I'm like, yeah. Golly. And this is funny. All these examples are from one client. Isn't that crazy? That was a referral from a really good client who I think I saw in the airport yesterday when I was in the lounge for 8 hours. And I was like, oh God, these new people are complaining to one of my good clients. So I was like hiding behind my laptop. I was like, please, I don't want to talk because I know he's talking bad at me. Oh gosh, you gotta love them though, right? So we need to protect our boundaries, right? Our margins. When they're asking, how much do you charge? You do not need to tell them that. What is your markup? You do not need to tell them that. Because what happens is when they start asking, you're like, I don't want to say it, so then you lower it. You think that you have to tell, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm just going to lower it because it sounds better. This happens at my firm all the time, and I'm like, this is crazy. Why would we do that? And when you start getting those calls from the client, especially as a younger designer, it hurts. You know, I had one 2 weeks ago. She's like, I'm the same client. Oh my God, it's the same client. She's like, one of the other leads told me, yeah, she had a hard time last night. She told me she hates her job because of this one lady. And I'm like, and she wants to quit. I was like, you know, I got to get things in check. I really do. God, I had no idea all these were on the same person. It's ridiculous. So yes, oh my gosh. Shopping your selection, buying their own furniture. What in the heck? Your margins go away. You have this great contract. You have a scope of what you're getting for them. You have a budget and they've signed. Golly. And then the Google Lens it all. You're like, what? Y'all, that is just happening so much. So the more you can change, y'all, we are like hardcore on Etsy now. Just finding like cool little accessories and other things really because I can't shop them. So think about that. And also when we're doing presentations, we do not give them a tear sheet. I used to do that. Here's your tear sheet. Well, I might as well be handing them like all the products for them to go, right? So like see it like during the presentation, and then on Studio you can change it a little bit, but they're just seeing those little teeny tiny prices, or the pictures. I think that's helped a lot. So yes, margins, fee transparency. We're losing out there because of us. And then they start wanting to buy their own furniture. Or you guys, you're not using a pricing system. That's what's happening too on our margins. Like I mentioned, do you mark up the rugs the same every time? Do you have to think about it? Do you get to decide? Yeah, let's make it standard, right? Net profit margins. Oh my gosh, this is where it's funny because you have to have boundaries with yourself, and with your clients. So this is where things fall through the cracks too. Oh my gosh, yes, we need to go to KBIS, and we need to go to High Point 2 times a year, and we need to go to Maison, like all the things, right? You're overcharging. You're not charging enough for your design fees. You might be taking projects you should not. Hands up, does a small bathroom take just as long as a big bathroom? Yes. Does a small room project take just as long as like 2 or 3? Yes, right? It just is longer because oftentimes somebody who is asking you to do a 1-room project, same person, micromanaging, right? They have nothing else to do. My God, this is crazy. So I went in, and you guys, if you've been in my world, I just do, like, I don't do, to work with us is you've got to spend, $300,000. I do it by room minimum. It's just a little bit nicer. It's just a little nicer. Well, we have a 5-room, limit, minimum. This is why I explain it instead of saying, we're at the 300,000 level. You can't work with us. So come on, we're all people. So think about that. But you need to stick to it. And that's why someone else needs to answer the phone. So you don't get drugged into taking these things that you don't want to take. All right. Oh, what do we do about all this? Like I said, we're keeping minimums. We are... The time leak, we're not allowing our clients to text us directly. I know y'all are going to throw something at me. And then the last one, again, this is the big creeper, you guys, on the reselects. I have a huge thing on reselects. Flat fee firms, just one more lamp choice, just one more, right? And then it gets out of control, and they're like, oh, just if you could just find me 2 more. So flat fee, you just have to put in your boundaries, right? These are your boundaries. How many reselects do they get? Put it in there, right? Put it in there. If they go more, okay, you're moving on to our hourly phase. It works like a charm. But that's the thing. You don't want to think about this stuff, right? You don't want to think about it. Let me go back to this. Setting standards. So I always think about, I think about the term brush your teeth. Are we negotiating brushing your teeth? Do we have to think about it? No. It's just something that you do every day. Do you have to feed kids dinner? Yes. It's things we do every single day. Yet we struggle with, these decisions that we're making. But if you just think about this is the way it is, and as you do this longer, or if you're getting super serious about your margins, the emotion comes out of those decisions, and it's just like, this is the way it is. This is my business structure. You can blame it on a consultant. You can blame it on a business manager. You can blame it on your accountant. But it gets so much easier because it is your business, and it's the way that you have set it up. It's been really working, especially with the designers in my firm. They're like, yep, You've already done your 2 reselects, so moving on to hourly, it's working. So I always say that people like to be told what to do, and it's true. You know, it's your process, and I want you guys to own it. Brush your teeth. Brush your teeth. So a couple of things. Join the class. There's something on your little chair there. So how many of you guys know Jessica Dews? I don't know if you guys know her. She is like the guru in short-term rental design. If you are interested, when I think about building wealth as a designer, sometimes when you get to the level, you have your systems and processes in place, you have your workflow, and you want to dive into diversification, those are some of the things that we're talking about. So we are going in, Monday, May 25th, 11 to 1. I'm teaching a masterclass in workflow. I have figured out in all the designers that I've been working with, it's like sometimes their projects just fall off the tracks. And I'm like, oh, if you would just follow this order from picking up the phone to installation, step by step. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this. And I feel like we get so much information thrown at us as designers because we're seeking the right thing to do. This is something that's you just implement, right? So you're not running off the course, but we're adding how to start like a little, short-term vacation rental design component with the same workflow. So you can sign up for that. That's a free masterclass. And then also, I am going to invite Zach up to talk about, now he's going to be the report person, right? So if you're wondering on some of the things that I talked about, they're like, how do I do this? What is it going to take for me to analyze this? What are the main things that maybe I should be looking at? What if I don't have Studio Designer? Or if you're thinking about using Studio Designer, he's going to be the guy. I just look at the nice reports and input all the things. So who here has a question about using another platform, accounting platform, other than QuickBooks? Did I explain enough to what you do? You tell them how they can benefit them.
Hey everyone, I'm Zach. I'm a solutions consultant at Studio Designer, so I work with some of our prospects, helping them understand not just like the entry level of what our systems can do, but a lot of what Tracy's talking about with reporting and with accounting and all of those things. I am not just the reports guy, I will say, so my background is actually in design. I was not an interior designer, I was a special events designer. So for the first 6 years of my career, I designed weddings and I designed conferences and all sorts of special events. So everything Tracy's talking about today, I'm getting like little PTSD flashbacks to, oh God, I remember that client, I remember that wedding. Just the one, honestly, I do have that one, and it was, those were definitely some jarring moments. I also come from a design family. Both my mother and my sister are interior designers, so I'm not just coming from a random tech guy who's up here talking to you. Like, this is something that I and my family and we all are very passionate about, but a lot of what Tracy is talking about here, really all of what Tracy is talking about here, is supported by systems like Studio Designer. If you use another accounting system like QuickBooks, they're great solutions. The advantage of a system like Studio Designer is that we are tailor-built for the interior design industry. This is a solution that there's so much gray area in interior design when it comes to, QuickBooks or Xero or Sage or these other solutions. They're the ones that my construction company that I work with use. They're the one that my dry cleaner uses, but they're not the ones that an interior designer should use. We have a lot of unique workflows when it comes to when you recognize revenue. Is it at delivery? Is it at install? You have control over that in a system like Studio Designer. Also, the fact that we are an items-based system, this is going to be very unique from those of you who use a system like QuickBooks or even use an Excel spreadsheet. We build everything from the item up. What that means is that every component of an item, if you want it to be, every sofa that you procure, every piece that you're talking with your customer about is a unique entity in Studio Designer, meaning that not only can I track the life cycle of that item through proposals and purchase orders and invoices and what the profit margin or what the profit on that item is, but I can also report down to that level to say, across this project, across all of my projects, across this calendar year, what was my gross profit margin for furniture? What was my gross profit margin for custom furniture, if you do any custom fabrications, case goods, other things like that? You also have the ability to do that by room or by other categories as well. I have a designer who, I love them dearly, but I have a designer, it's a little bit crazy. I have a designer who does categories and does gross profit margin by design style. She actually has put in a custom field, or a custom quote unquote field in Studio to track the style of the design of that item, and says, okay, well, are my coastal goods netting me a larger profit margin than my mid-century modern items? Maybe I need to change my design style moving forward to accommodate for changing trends. And that's something that a system like Studio Designer can really help you with. Now, that's a weird use case, I will say. I don't recommend day one reporting that kind of information, but you can. And that's what a system like Studio allows you to do, is we really kind of grow with you over time of, okay, what do I need to do right now to make my business more efficient? What do I need to do tomorrow to make my business more efficient? And what is my 5-year plan moving forward? And our company, we have 130 of us across the US and Canada. We have 20,000 plus designers who are working with our solution. We support them all equally. That's a big thing for us. There's a lot of really amazing things that Traci was talking about here today, with like design time is a really big one that I harp with so many of my customers. Billing for your time covers the known. The profit that you put on that, the margins and the profit that you put on your procurement items, that covers the unknown, because there is so much unknown in a project. You start with one great proposal and one great board that you've put together with your customer. That is not what is going to be delivered 6 months or a year from now. So you need to accommodate for that in your non-billable hours, just tracking those in your profit margin, in the item that gets damaged and you have to return. And I love the question about, well, what happens when a customer comes to me and says, oh, well, I saw this item for 20% cheap. When I was an event designer, what I would often say to customers is that you wouldn't even have known about that item unless I introduced you to it. The number of customers I would work with when I was a wedding designer who'd say, oh my God, I saw cafe lights on Pinterest and I can buy them at Sam's Club for $2 a linear foot. It's like, that's so great. Have you accommodated in your budget for the insurance, the ladders, the people to install them, the people to take them down, the zip ties, the hanging equipment, the guy I have to pay to do the specialized install that has to be licensed, bonded, and insured, the warehousing and all of those kind of things? Those are the things that the client has no connection to. This industry, the construction industry, the event design industry, there is no apples to apples comparison of like, oh, I'm just going to go to Home Depot, I'm going to buy a refrigerator. Great, I can look at 30 refrigerators and kind of get an understanding of what each refrigerator might cost. Our clients, for better or for worse, don't have that luxury in the interior design industry. That way, they also don't have that connection to like what an item really costs them. It's like, that's great that you can get that chair for 20% cheaper with that manufacturer, but are you going to be the one responsible for everything beyond that? And using a system like Studio Designer allows you, even at the items level, to accommodate for what we call other costs. So you can track those other costs and you can customize what your other costs are of, okay, by item, what is my additional freight? What's my installation? What's my warehousing? What's my contingency? And all of the other variables that can come into play when it comes to fabric and things like that are much harder to just go and resource again. So using a system like Studio can be really helpful for that. And I have diatribed for much too long, so I'm more than happy to take questions. Yeah, so Studio Designer is really, for the most part, designed to replace systems like that. We don't have, we own Mydoma as well, so they're a sister software of ours. We acquired them last year. They kind of solve for two different areas of the interior design industry. So we don't have as many tools for like generating mood boards and design presentations and 2D and 3D renderings. We are your business and financial management solution. So if you want to use another like tool that generates really great floor plans for you, generates really good mood boards and design presentations, whether that be a Mydoma, whether that be a Canva, if you want to start with something like that, you can use those in tandem, but we don't rely on other like accounting systems. So rather than saying, oh great, I'm going to run all of my items and my budgets and my proposals through Studio and then push that to a QuickBooks, we handle that in our system. So we are a full general ledger accounting solution, tailor-built for the interior design industry. Sure, so we are accrual basis only because it blends more nicely with the interior design industry on recognizing revenue. So I happen to be very lucky. I'm married to an accountant. My wife has been an accountant for many, many, many years, cash-based is not good for scale. So if you get beyond one person at a firm, or honestly, if you get, if you have multiple billing projects, cash basis recognizes revenue immediately, which means that you don't have the flexibility to make adjustments after you have billed for that item. So in the instance of, great, we bought a chair, we acquired that chair, we billed the customer for it, and we have to recognize that revenue immediately, which means we are on the hook for sales tax, which means we're on the hook for all of the other expenses that come with that on our P&L, but maybe I don't deliver that chair to my customer until 2026. What if the sales tax rates change? What if the chair goes back damaged? What if the price changes before delivery? You can't really accommodate for that in a cash-based accounting system. Your bookkeeper would love it because they can get more billable hours from you. But from the reality of running a business, accrual-based, and we work on a modified accrual, so like your business expenses are still immediately posting, but your project-related expenses are the ones that allow you to have that flexibility. If you're worried about your bookkeeper not being comfortable with working with an accrual-based accounting system, we have an amazing financial consulting partners program. We work with 50 to 60 different bookkeepers, accountants, fractional CFOs, procurement partners, all across the US and Canada, who one, work in the interior design industry, and two, Studio Designer is their default accounting program for their businesses. So we're always happy to make those introductions after you get started with us. Yes, please. So the way that we carry it is customer or client deposits. So when you send a proposal in Studio Designer, you can choose a deposit percentage request, whether that be 10%, 100%, that really doesn't matter, the percentage. That goes into, it's still associated when you collect those funds, and we have our own payment system that makes it easy. It's still considered part of that project. Those funds are applied directly to that item, but they live in a client deposit kind of container inside Studio Designer from an accounting workflow. Same goes for when you actually pay your vendors. Until you do the final invoice, which is the trigger for recognizing revenue in Studio Designer, client payments that you've made out, or vendor payments, and I apologize, that you've made out, are considered vendor deposits as well. So it gives you that flexibility. It's still on the books, it's still being tracked, and you can report on it very easily. But when you generate that final invoice, considering the goods or services having been rendered, that's when it becomes recognized revenue. That's when it hits your P&L. That's when it becomes like a full kind of cycle. Yeah.
The other question I have in regards to that is, if you're spending money on product that you're not going to sell until the future, that ties your revenue up immediately because you can't write it off until you sell it on the accrual basis, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So you're receiving and spending revenue. That's.
Wouldn't that be tying up revenue in ways that doesn't really benefit you because you're spending the money on the item to keep it in inventory? If you can't write it off until you actually deposit it with your customer or sell it to the customer, then you've got things sitting on the books that have value, but you can't do anything with it from a tax perspective.
Sure. So in that instance, what I would say is choose your triggering moment for when you considered it rendered. You don't have to, I use delivered to the customer as an example, but for your business, you would say, okay, I do final invoice on these items, or I recognize this revenue when I've spent the money. That's something you can totally do. The invoice in Studio Designer is just a triggering action. When you choose to recognize that revenue is up to you and your bookkeeper or consultant, your financial partner, to kind of determine this is when we want this recognized. So that's a really easy thing that you can do in Studio. There's a lot of firms that I work with that the moment they put money down with a client, or sorry, with a vendor, they say, great, that is a commitment. I want to recognize that now because I want to take advantage of a lower tax rate, or I want to lock in on that revenue. We have a lot of designers who have customers who hem and haw, and they work with custom fabricators that prices change daily or weekly. Those are the ones who often say, I don't recognize my revenue for that until it's actually been provided to the customer. It's in their hands, and I am taking myself away from that. That is something that you would want to talk to your accountant or bookkeeper about, and we can always accommodate for that.
Recognize at the receiver. When it hits the receiver is when we trigger the invoice.
Yeah, that's a great time of doing so. That's also when you're going to have all of your fixed costs in place. There's generally no more variables. And if there is another hidden cost or another variable, great, you just add that on as a line item and invoice for it separately, but tie it to the item.
We looked into Studio Designer a few years ago.
Sure.
And at that point, there was really no exploratory element to it.
Yeah.
So it was, you just basically listen to the rep and he's telling you how it works, but you can't really go in and play around with
Sure.
to be able to get in there and see it. Is that something that you guys think that you may introduce at some point to kind of give people a feel for it before they get in?
Sure. So it is a tricky area. We've explored it in the past. The issue that we often run into is with someone having like a sandbox or trial account is that because it is a business and financial management solution, it can be incredibly overwhelming right away with a just empty or templated account that's not familiar to you. So what we've actually done instead is we have mandatory implementation for all of our customers where they can get started with Studio Designer, and every customer we work with, unless they're working with one of our financial consulting partners or they are just very tenured from another firm on Studio, we say, okay, you're going to do at least our Jumpstart program, which involves a couple of hours of product training, really making sure that the account is set up to your liking. Now, we do have some flexibility with that, but I would warn you that jumping into an account really with very little in it can be incredibly overwhelming. It's also something that we have found historically, people just don't prioritize testing something. So it's the commitment of saying, hey, I want to at least commit 30, 60, 90 days to making sure that this platform is good for my business. And in return, we're going to take care of onboarding you and treating you just like a member of our family. So definitely something we could talk about, or we could talk about with one of my sales consultants as well. Of course.
We have time for one more, and then Zach can stay around. I can stay around
Yes,
and
I'm
chat
more than
with you.
happy to stay.
Yeah, but right here.
My question's kind of around like freight, receiving, storage, delivery, and just, are you making profit margin on those? And then what is your, with regards to Studio Designer, are you entering those in as items? Or are you putting them in under other costs? Or like, how do you do that in your?
Our freight is, it's an item at the very beginning on the original, on the very first proposal. Because when we do a proposal, we're trying to get as much as we can on the first one, so that's sales tax, and that's freight line item. And we are making money off of the freight, but not necessarily, a little bit on receiving, storage, but not a lot, because that bill is so high anyway, so.
So you're just taking, like, you just have a flat rate you're doing for freight based on whatever your item?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have
And-
lots of designers who do
Yes.
different variations. A lot of designers I work with they'll create a line item and budget for a certain amount of freight at the beginning of the project. And then because you have the budgeting capability in Studio, you don't have to fill in the selling price of that item. You can just say, okay, well, this is all my freight. It's in the category of freight. And any other time I have freight expenses, I'm just going to go ahead and put them in as a freight other cost if I want to tie it right to the item. You can set different markup percentages for different other costs. So you can say, well, great, I run off of a 60% markup on my furniture, but for my freight, I work on a 10% markup. For my warehousing, maybe I work on a 7.5% markup, whatever that may be. And then I do have some designers who just say, great, we're going to do one whole big line item for freight or warehousing or whatever it might be, and we're just going to expense it all at once at the end of the project so that all the kind of weird gray area stuff can be accommodated for, and you can close things out cleanly if you'd like to. That really comes down to a personal preference.
Taking, receiving, storage, and delivery money up front, or you bill for that at the end?
I've always billed at the end, although I've been, somebody's persuading me to put it at the beginning now. So I'm going to see how it goes. I just feel like sometimes you don't know how long that the delivery company is going to take. And also, I mean, how many times did it happen? 90% of the time when it's going to be, say you're collecting furniture because the house isn't finished. Well, the house isn't finished, so you continue to have storage fees. And if I were to build it up front with no wiggle room, then I'm stuck paying for it. So there's got to be some boundaries there with that. Yeah.
Something I've also seen increasing in popularity recently is billing on a monthly basis for those things. So if you have a contract with your warehousing or freight companies, you can just say, great, I'm going to track all of my expenses related to weight or freight or warehousing or installation, and I'm going to bill with those just like I do my time, where I might bill on a biweekly or monthly basis. That allows you to have that, hey, an item has sat in a warehouse much longer than anticipated, therefore the costs are much higher than we anticipated, but I'm going to show you what the monthly actual rate was so that you can get that item out of warehouse, please and thank you.
But we don't like delivering them in those little stages because,
yeah.
it's like,
That
we
is the
just
one
like, I
downside
know.
of
So
that,
I don't.
too.
I have always I haven't done that. But if they know that it's not our fault, everything's in, they have nowhere to deliver it to because the house isn't done. They're okay with it. But I know, always a double-edged sword. So thank you for coming.